We are the mediocre presidents. You won't find our faces on dollars or on cents. There's Taylor, there's Tyler, there's Fillmore, and there's Hayes. There's William Henry Harrison.
I died in 30 days.
We are the adequate, forgettable, occasionally regrettable caretaker presidents of the USA.
Tyler, start us off.
Okay, welcome to our podcast. My name is Tyler.
My name is McLean. Chaos Effect History. And boy, are we choosing a good week to talk about presidents. Am I right, Tyler, talking about presidents?
We are talking about presidents, and we're talking about a couple that I find pretty interesting. So, by the time this episode is released, we will have a new president in the White House with the inauguration of Joe Biden. Woo! The nightmare is over.
Or
Now a new nightmare can start.
currently we are fighting in 9 different factions in a countrywide civil war. In that case, long live the Northeast Republic. I don't know what Pennsylvania is a part of, but like we're either part of the Northeast or the Southwest or the Southeast, the Midwest, or we're our own sovereign. Because like technically New Jersey's part of that weird New England thing, but we're not.
I don't know.
Besides the point, let's talk about some unknown.
I just want to note, we are recording this a few days before the inauguration. So today is Monday. The inauguration is on Wednesday. So if some crazy shit happens, we don't know about it yet. That's for future us to discuss.
From our foxholes.
Yeah.
It's really bad. You know, if I'm fighting, that means it's really bad because technically I'm a 4F now. I want you to know that.
Yeah. I don't know what's gonna happen. Probably nothing. But
no, so like if anybody's listening to this and getting stressed out, like because I released this on Wednesday morning. From what the news has shown, a lot of the people who did the violence on the Capitol storming are now either been arrested or too scared to do something else because now they're seeing there's actually repercussions for their actions.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of those dudes have been out on bail already, and it's gross.
Right, but the National Guard being there is a factor too.
They're literally sleeping in the Capitol building.
Yeah.
It's like they have like cots set up for the National Guard. It's crazy.
Apparently some hotels are starting to house them now, but it's weird. We live in weird times. Let's get on with the history.
The presidency obviously is like one of the most important seats of power in American government. And it's like the face of the nation. Everyone around the world knows. They might not know anything about our country and our government, but they'll probably be able to tell you who our president is. Like, yep, that's Donald Trump. Yep, that's Barack Obama. But we as Americans tend to look up to presidents as leaders and as a source of guidance. So they're always like, what do we do during these tough times? And they're like, I have the answer. Do they always deliver on that? No.
Is it always a good answer? No. Do they sometimes ignore the problem for months on end until they have finally the vaccine so they can kind of take credit for it, even though that vaccine is spreading incredibly slowly because they have done absolutely nothing? Yes.
Yes. So the concept of a president and what a president actually is capable of doing are two very different things. Someone like Donald Trump, we can point and laugh at, like, what a fucking fool, because he is making a disgrace out of what this office is supposed to be. And granted, a lot of presidents are not great, but
Andrew Jackson beat the shit out of a dude while in office.
Andrew Jackson he comes up a couple times in today's episode, but we're not talking about him. Like, I think Andrew Jackson is worthy of his own episode because, oh boy, does this man have a lot going on.
Yeah, but, he's bastard in every definition of the word.
Yeah. But he has such a foothold in the era of the presidencies that we're going to be talking about
Mm-hmm.
that like he's going to come up. But I like his presidency and him as himself, I think, is worthy of his own episode. But either way, we tend to view some presidents as heroes and as like these infallible figures that revolutionized our country, that did a lot. Like we always look to George Washington as the first president, the leader of the revolution. This dude is a national legend. Very few people know anything about him. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. Do we know much else about his presidency other than he fought the South during the Civil War? No, but he's a hero to us. And then there's the villains. We have we have a lot of presidents that we like to completely shit on. Andrew Jackson, one of them easily.
Andrew Johnson.
Andrew Johnson.
Something about Andrews. You can't trust an Andrew. Actually, that's not true. I knew a pretty chill Andrew in high school.
Yeah, I know a couple Andrews that are nice.
Can't trust leaders named Andrew.
Yeah. But you have your heroes of American presidents and you have your villains of American presidents, and those are pretty much what you learn in school. A lot of Americans don't know a lot of the people that fall in the middle. There are a lot of forgotten presidents that many people don't really know anything about beyond their name. So like when you're in like elementary, middle school, or high school, like you have like that big list of presidents, and you always point to like, yeah, that's that guy. For instance, obviously name's Tyler. I pointed out John Tyler, like, oh my God, that's the same. He's got the same name.
I've never had that experience with anything in my life.
Little did I know, John Tyler's a piece of shit. But
maybe it's good that. Well, I've had that experience with somebody that has the same name as my middle name, and it's not great. I'll put it this way: they are the antagonist of BlacKkKlansman.
Oh, David Duke.
Yeah, I stopped using that as my screen name for McLean Duke as my screen name for a while.
Topher Grace really brings a lot to that role.
You forget that's him.
Yeah.
That's gonna be an episode. All right, we need to get on this episode.
An episode all about Topher Grace.
All right, let's go on with our Metacore presidents. I feel like that's a good way to describe them. Very Metacore.
Yeah.
Like,
there are a lot of forgotten presidents we don't know the names of. Like I've always known like Martin Van Buren's face because just look at his facial hair. Fucking legend. But
I didn't know there was another Taft until this week.
Yeah. Do I know anything about Martin Van Buren's actual presidency? Much. But to save time, like there's a ton of forgotten presidents, but to save time, I'm only going to focus on 4. These 4 being John Quincy Adams, Martin Van Buren, John Tyler, and James K. Polk. All of them are like the same period. Like they're all back. We have Andrew Jackson like sandwiched in the middle, but
I feel like this is gonna be like I don't know how to refer to this properly, like a reoccurring series we might do. Just because there's a lot of these guys you can talk about.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, again, like they're all like the same time. You have Andrew Jackson, that's like who's the 7th presidency? Yeah, who's the 7th president? Quincy Adams 6th, and then Martin Van Buren's 8th. But like this is a period of American history that I feel like it often gets like glossed over, and you don't really know any of the people that are involved. Like, of course, you know like Andrew Jackson, but like when you're in your like high school history classes, you're like, yeah, around this time they're doing Manifest Destiny, and Manifest Destiny is pretty whack. But you don't really get to know many of the people behind that until like obviously tensions heat up around the Civil War, and then that's when like I feel like most classes pick up again. But like this period is like totally forgotten about to a lot of the public.
It's kind of that period you're in textbook when there's Native Americans the period before, but then there suddenly aren't any after that.
Yeah, the like in my experience with school, like the Native Americans in like our expansion are like important, but you don't really get to know a lot about the why this is happening. And it's just like, yeah, they're expanding the Westworld. A lot of the Native Americans are getting kicked out of their home. who cares about who's behind this? Oh yeah, Andrew Jackson did the Trail of Tears. That's pretty important. But then all those other people, who gives a shit?
Yeah,
But,
it's not like Hitler literally used that to design his Holocaust.
Ooh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, that was a big basis. Trail of Tears was a big basis to design the Holocaust.
Yeah, the Trail of Tears is truly a stain on American history that like you learn about it and it's awful, but like you don't like dwell on it really. It like I can totally imagine like a history teacher's like PowerPoint and there's like a bullet point about it. Like, yeah, the Trail of Tears happened. Like
Wait,
next,
can we go back on that one?
yeah, or like maybe you would get like a slide. On
And that makes you start thinking about some of their names. Like, my school has a Native American name.
yeah,
So is the town I'm in. I haven't seen a single Native American.
Quinnipiac University, everyone.
Yeah.
Like that, I obviously like I was educated in New York City public schools, so my perspective on issues is based on that. But,
Pennsylvania private school, but it's honestly about the same. I also realize like me being very critical of the white man is ironic considering I have the face of evil for the last several centuries of mankind.
yeah,
Just if you're watching the video version of this on YouTube, take a look in. Just imagine this genericness, and that's the face of evil for 1,000 years.
I mean, at least you're not evil.
I'm not that we know.
But it's
According to some
actions-
people, I am.
Actions speak louder than faces. Anyway, also, I just wanted to give a lot of these dudes some spotlights because they're kind of meh. Like this period of like I could totally understand why it's glossed over because it's kind of boring for a lot of it. But hey, here we are talking about him anyway.
Are you a little jealous they can say that about their period of time?
I honestly like I wish it was boring. That's part of the reason why I'm like really excited for Joe Biden. Not that I like agree with him on a lot. I'm just like I need a fucking boring person again.
At least we won't have a historic moment every other day.
Right.
Not the fun kind of historic moment like first man on the moon. The unfun kinds.
Yeah, I mean, unlike Joe Biden's boring, a lot of these dudes are kind of just like bad boring, except for two of them. We're gonna start off with John Quincy Adams, who's one of my favorite presidents. Not really much because of what he actually did as president. It's just like I think he's got a really interesting life, but I'm really gonna focus mostly on their presidencies specifically. So John Quincy Adams, JQA, is the son of second president John Adams. John Adams, very important figure in American history. He was VP to GW and did a lot during his one term as president. But John Quincy seems like he's kind of like handpicked to be president. Like he spends a lot of his childhood in Europe with his dad on diplomatic missions, and he was educated in several languages, including Dutch, French, Latin, German, Greek, and Russian. He's not, Italian's in there too. He's not fluent in a lot of these languages, may I add, but he's conversational in a few, and he's able to be an interpreter.
So he's like a ye old Pete Buttigieg, like created in some vat just to become president one day.
Yeah, pretty much. He is not only like highly educated. He had high level private tutors, but he also studied in several schools in Europe and then went to Harvard in the United States. He has a lot of experience as a diplomat and a lawyer, and especially as a Secretary of State, which is probably his biggest position, where he got more done as Secretary of State than he did as president. So his bid as president seemed to be pretty easy until Old Hickory joins the race. The election of 1824 was rough, with John Quincy Adams winning through the House of Representatives. That's how tight the Electoral College race is, and Jackson is pissed, understandably. Jackson does, like, funny enough, John Quincy Adams considered Jackson to be his VP. But the thing that really does Quincy Adams in and that just dooms his whole presidency is he appoints Henry Clay as the Secretary of State, and Jackson hates this dude. Jackson absolutely hates this dude, and Jackson hates a lot of people.
I was about to say, find somebody in this time period Jackson got along with quite well.
Not many.
Find somebody Jackson didn't actively try to shoot at one point or another.
Jackson's regrets in life as he was dying was that he did not hang. I think the quote. I'm gonna look up this quote right now because he did not kill John C. Calhoun and Henry Clay, I think. So just imagine that you're the president and your regrets are not killing your vice president.
We've had two very conflicting last words we've mentioned so far. Huey Long, I wish I could do more, or please God, I have so much more to go. And Andrew Jackson, I wish I could kill that bastard.
Jackson took the time to reflect on his own presidency with a friend. Oh, this is right after Van Buren is elected. When asked if he had any regrets about the last 8 years, this was his response: that I didn't shoot Henry Clay and I didn't hang John C. Calhoun.
Oh my God.
So
I would say Andrew Jackson's kind of like a yield Trump, but honestly, like, if Trump talked like this, I'd be more afraid than just like utterly annoyed every day.
Dude, the Trump quote about him shooting a person on Fifth Avenue is like diet Andrew Jackson.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, you're gonna say it, but you're not gonna follow through.
Yeah.
Like Andrew Jackson probably would have.
So John Quincy Adams is a person who has like a very progressive agenda, but fails to get a lot of it through because Jackson and his buddies. Jackson has a lot of buddies, and he's probably one of the most powerful people in American politics. He's not the president at this point, but oh boy, does he have a lot of people backing him. And Henry Clay also is also one of the reasons that John Quincy got the presidency over Jackson. So when he's appointed Secretary of State, you can only imagine how much of a stab in the back that must have felt. So Jackson and a lot of his buddies in Congress blocked a lot of Quincy's plans. It did not go very well, and he only ended up serving one term, which is tragic because Quincy has a lot of plans. He's also considered an abolitionist too, so he has a lot of concerns about slavery that he didn't really like. He didn't publicly voice a lot of those because obviously that's a big no-no in a lot of places. But he very much was against the institution of slavery.
Yeah, because what year is this?
So Quincy Adams is president in the 1820s.
Yeah, so this is a bit before the Civil War when you'd even start mentioning maybe the talks of abolition.
Yeah.
It's also just occurred to my attention. I learned this week that the "Don't Tread on Me" flag was made by a notorious slave trader at the time.
What a surprise!
Yeah. Anyway, so it sounds to me like Quincy is just a very common case with anybody who tries to be progressive before
progressiveness was seen as something that was even possible, where it's like you get stomped out by history for daring trying to change something.
Yeah. He's one of those people that like has the potential to be a great president, but he's just stomped out by the circumstances, which is really unfortunate. Again, he only serves one term, and he loses his second term to Jackson, who becomes the 7th president. And oh lord, are those an interesting 8 years?
It's weird talking about presidents in single digit numbers.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because we're on 46 will be this Wednesday,
46, yeah.
which is a lot.
It's a lot of presidents. Back in my day,
I
we only had 5. But after Jackson, we're gonna skip over Jackson's presidency because that I truly believe that is worthy of its own episode. But Martin Van Buren is the 8th, and you know he's kind of forgotten for good reason. He doesn't really do much because a lot of his presidency is relying. It's directly coincides with the financial panic of 1837, which most presidents that become president during a recession, they tend up to serve only one term, because if the economy's in the shitter, then it's obviously the president's fault. And
mean, we wouldn't know what that's like.
yeah, in this case, yeah, Martin Van Buren was not very active in a lot of the economics during this time period, and people were suffering. Recessions are always bad, but they're like super bad when most people don't have like running water.
I mean, where would this be like compared to like the Great Depression? Because I feel like that's the one that everybody knows about.
This is 100 years before the Great Depression.
Right, but I'm saying like to compare it how bad it was.
I can't really give you a gauge on that.
Right.
To be honest, but a lot of it's like you have a ton of economic expansion in this period of before the financial panic, because you know the country's growing, you have a ton of silver coming in, and then when the stock market crashes, everyone's just like, oh shit, what do we do? The banks totally fail, people are losing their jobs. It's a bad time, and this is where this guy has the pleasure to be president. A lot of these presidents who end up in president during crises do not end up faring well. But guess who a lot of policies that Van Buren supported? Jackson. So
makes sense.
Van Buren also continues a lot of Jackson's agenda, which includes relocation of American Indians, which, of course, which is like, I really wish I could talk more about how awful that is, because it's as we were talking about before, we don't really learn a lot about the impact of the Trail of Tears, and to these government people and aristocrats, they don't really get to, they just know that it's they think it's free real estate, and they're so separate from the devastation that's actually being caused. So a lot of there's some historians that will come to Andrew Jackson's and these people's defense and talk about like, yeah, but they did so much for the economy, blah blah blah, the banking system, blah blah blah.
Yeah, your economy doesn't matter when it's built on the base of corpses.
Correct. When we have a lot of conversation about like Christopher Columbus being kind of genocidal, and yeah, he was, but it's so easy for us to say that because now we know, of course, like Yeah, but Columbus never really made it to American mainland. Columbus is not, he's not American. America didn't exist yet, but this stuff happened under the same United States government. And this, by all means, I would say, is very genocidal. Of course, it's with the intent to relocate over, like, straight up murder people. This isn't is, but the amount of deaths that were caused and the devastation that this brought upon communities cannot be understated by any means. But another like stain on Van Buren's reputation at the time, other than how he had a shit economy, is that he also opposed the annexation of Texas, and how he really did not want Texas to become a state. And
So imagine, given that what Texas is doing now, and for the last several years, anytime a Democrat's gone elected and threatened to leave, at this point they were actually like wanted to be part of our country.
yeah, so like a lot of people were upset about that. Obviously, Texas did become a state eventually, but this helped him in good graces with some people, but not with others. It's a very contentious topic at the time, but definitely not a great look for him. And does anybody know anything about him really? I mean, he's got the sickest facial hair by any president standards. I mean, just like, come on, look at that beard.
I missed that.
Oh, I was just saying, I was really just talking about his facial hair. Martin Van Buren. He like.
Yeah, he had one of the. I just looked up. He has one of those weird. He kind of looks like he shaved and then gave up halfway through.
He's got a similar kind of deal to John Quincy Adams, where it's like bald, but he's got like sideburns. But he takes it to a new level. But fun fact, English, he's the only president where English is not his primary language. He grew up, I mean, of course he was like American, from New York, but he grew up speaking Dutch. And I think that's a neat little tidbit about him. But other than that, there's really not much to say about Van Buren.
I mean, that makes sense for the time period too. I mean, relatively speaking, the Revolutionary War, where we became an established country, was incredibly recent. And
Right.
there are still communities like in Pennsylvania that speak German primarily and Dutch even. So like that
Yeah.
that makes sense.
You know, the Dutch have a very important role in American history, and I think we need to talk about them more in general, because I'm sick and tired of hearing about the English. I advocate for Dutch rule.
Yeah, I mean I think that's the most like obscure thing about history is like, yeah, everybody was British and then we became American. Like, no. I mean, had claim on our land, but there's a whole bunch of people and then we became a whole bunch of people under one name.
Right. There's a lot of Dutch people around, and they had a large colonial holdings before they lost them to England. But it's really I always find that really interesting about Van Buren. I mean, like, you could tell by his name that, like, oh, one of these things is not like the other. But yeah, that's all I really got to say about him. But John Tyler, the dude who shits on my name, I hate him. You know, do you know? Are you aware of what John Tyler's nickname is?
Nope.
His accidency. You know why? Because he is the 10th president. Notice how we went from 8th to 10th, because 9th was William Henry Harrison. And William Henry Harrison dies 30 days into office.
Wait, what?
Oh yeah, okay. So
I like what? How do I not know this? Two, how did I not realize we skipped a guy?
so William Henry Harrison is a notorious president for the one reason of him dying so early into his presidency.
I thought
But
James Garfield had that one nailed down as
no,
being someone who died really quickly. And
William Henry Harrison died a month, but the story of how it happened is legendary. Because he's one of the reasons why one of these reasons why he's not on this list was one, he really didn't get to do much as president, and two, it's like this is a legend. Uh, William Henry Harrison gave the longest inaugural speech in history.
wait, I know this one now. Yeah, he got really sick in the rain, and that's like how he died, right?
It was cold as hell. It was pouring rain, and he chose to ride in on horseback instead of in a carriage. And then he just didn't really wear a coat. And guess what that caught him? Pneumonia. And he dies a month into his presidency. So this is the first time that a president has died like that. So
So was Van Buren his vice president, or
John Tyler was his vice president. So
Oh.
John Tyler becomes president because Henry Harrison is
I
dead.
missed that we? Okay, sorry, I got a little mixed up out of order.
William Henry Harrison is dead now. It's completely out of nowhere. Everyone's just like, yo, what? So we get his accidency, John Tyler. He's the first vice president to come into power after a president dies. He is a member of the Whig Party, and surprise, surprise, there was a period of time where there was more than just the Democrat and Republican Party that ruled everything. The Whig Party was very influential. Martin Van Buren was also a member of this party, but John Tyler opposes a lot of the Whig Party platform and vetoes a lot of the policies enacted by his own party. And obviously, that's not going to put him in great graces with a lot of people. He's also a states' rights activist. And
Wait, what?
John Tyler he loves states' rights. He's a states' rights loving president.
So kind of Confederacy before the Confederacy was a thing.
Well, I mean, when the Confederacy did become a thing, guess who he supported?
I'm gonna guess the racist side. I mean, both sides were probably racist, but the really racist side.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was audible, but I just let out a sigh that was, God damn this country.
Fun fact about John Tyler: he has a living son, the 10th president. Not a living son, living grandson. I need to correct that. The 10th.
He has to be hundreds of years old. How?
The 10th president of the United States has a 91-year-old grandson. That is incredible. I think John Tyler was born in 1790. His grandson was born in, I think, like the 1920s. And if that sounds weird to you, because it is, him and his son both had children at a disgustingly old age.
How old were their wives at the time?
Do you want the answer?
I feel like for the sake of the podcast, we should get the answer, but I really don't want to know.
I should have written this down. I got
Oh, would it be legal by today's standards?
It was legal, yes.
Okay, I mean that's not as bad, I guess. Like, this is. I feel like this is gonna be gross.
Hold I don't know why I can't find this information right now.
We can come back to this later, but like that's just it's the world trying to tell us it doesn't want this information. I just really wish there could be I hope we recorded your expression when you asked, "Do I really want to know that?"
Okay.
Because that was what. What was that?
Tyler fathered more children than any other American president. His first wife was Latita Christian, who was the same age as him, with whom he had 8 children.
Jeez.
His first wife died of a stroke while he was in the White House, and then he married again.
She had 8 children. I could imagine that.
He married again on June 26, 1844, to Julia Gardner. So John Tyler is born in 1790. Want to guess what year Julia Gardner is born?
Oh, I don't want to guess this game.
1820.
Ooh, yeah, no.
He
I just did quick math in my head. I don't like that.
Yep.
So I'm trying to think. Realistically, he could have children very close to his current. I mean, we have a president who has. I'm now saying that loud, has children that are older than I think his current wife, or at least or close to her age.
I don't know that actually.
I know it's ballpark. No, I think just close to her age, but yeah.
Yeah. But bottom line is John Tyler was a fucking machine. And has a lot of children and had children at a disgustingly old age, and so did his son. So one of John Tyler's grandsons is still living today. So but John Tyler gets into a lot of trouble with his own party because he's constantly bickering with them. He's vetoing their policies, and surprise, surprise, he only serves 1 term because nobody likes him. He became president because the first one died. Nobody elected him to be the president. And his legacy is that of being not only an old creep, but being the guy who took over after the other guy died. There's really not much to Mr. Tyler. But Polk, however, is probably one of the most interesting presidents because I think his example is something that we need to talk. Like, I wish more presidents followed because I think he's probably one of the best presidents during this time period, and he's like nestled in a period where pretty much every single president sucks ass. So
every president in this time period was pretty much a bastard.
Right.
I think Lincoln might have been the first one who wasn't just like utterly villainous in his ideas about how to treat everybody who wasn't white, Christian, and a man.
And not only that, like it's either that like they were like they supported slavery, or they just felt so separated from the issue that they didn't care about it, or because obviously like fucking privilege. Or like they just didn't put it forward another action, or they're too like willing to compromise on stuff. So a lot of these like presidents leading up to the Civil War, history frowns upon them because obviously like their lack of action and their indifference or straight up hatred of Black people and slaves led to the cause of the Civil War. But James Polk is somebody that I find really interesting because, I mean, he was buddies with Jackson, which is a fat yikes in my book, but he has like a very strong example because what Polk is famous for, other than being the innovator of the mullet, is he only served 1 term because he only ran for 1 term. He set 4 goals before he became president, and he said I'm going to do these 4 things in my 4 years as president, and then I'm going to be done. So his 4 goals: cut tariffs. He wants to reestablish the U.S. The independence of the U.S. Treasury, and he wants to gain territory in Oregon, California, and New Mexico. He did all of it. He set aside goals that he wanted to do in 4 years, didn't worry about re-election, and he did what he wanted to do. And I don't know why nobody saw that and was just like, maybe I should do that. Like, whether or not like I fully support all of his policies or who he is friends with or blah blah blah, I think the pure action of just knowing exactly what you want to do and making the right choices to get those things done, that's a pretty baller move for me.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't common at the time. Also, could you imagine somebody now just running with the idea that they only get one shot, they're not going to try again?
Right. Like, the thing is most people, surprise, surprise, in politics are greedy as hell. Who would have thought, right?
Tyler, I thought everybody's running with the best interest of the American. They always tell me they're running with the best interest of us.
I know, right? But they always make a bunch of promises that just sound good on paper, but like what their plans are to actually achieve those promises are, and whether they actually follow through with a lot of those goals is always up in the air. And then, of course, like they can't do anything too radical in their first term because they gotta seek re-election, of course. So, and that happens a lot of times in American history. Where like, shit, I could do something, but man, that would hurt my chance of being re-elected. And sometimes in the moment things seem like a bad move, but like obviously in hindsight we know better. Like, yeah, you really should have done that because maybe it might have been pretty shit in the short run that like would have helped things forward a lot more. But you haven't really seen any presidents since that just saying like, all right, straight up, I'm gonna do a couple things and then bop, done. I don't need to worry about re-election. I have my goals in mind, and I'm going to commit to those goals, and that's what I want my legacy to be.
The only thing close to that I can think about is Garfield, and that's simply because he didn't want to be president. It's just they didn't want Ulysses S. Grant to run for a third time so bad they would rather make anybody but him president.
Yeah, I mean, Garfield is a sad example of wasted potential.
Garfield goes hand in hand with Huey Long as like, man, this guy probably could have changed a lot if it wasn't for his untimely death.
Right. American history is really interesting because you have so many instances of people that are like, yeah, this guy could be the change that we need.
Yeah, I mean, Martin Luther King today's Martin Luther King Day.
Today is, yeah.
And that has got to be the greatest example of, yeah, we could have had greatness if it wasn't for
white supremacists.
Yeah.
People forget that Martin Luther King was killed.
Yeah.
He didn't just die. He was assassinated. And the people that like constantly quote him are only quoting him because they quote unquote want peace without understanding what that peace stood for and what he actually was fighting for.
Yeah, I mean, anytime a politician says Martin Luther King would have evoked violence like these people have done, they forget the purpose of his peaceful marches were to provoke the police into doing violence so the police would look bad.
Right. Like, he's such a great example on American history and gets yeeted, which is probably one of the
That's
most.
the worst way to put that.
Yeah. I wish I didn't say that, but it's out there now.
Right, but back to our presidents. Wasted. Back to our presidents, though.
I really just wanted to give a shout out to Polk for sticking to his guns, actually following through with the things that he promised, and not sacrificing the integrity of his promises because he wants to seek re-election.
Is Polk is the famous army fort named after Polk?
Probably, I think so.
Because I just know they're like the three that come to mind are like Hood, which is named after a Confederate General Polk, and another one that just now escapes my mind. But yeah, I was just thinking of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right after him, you have Zachary Taylor, who also dies.
Jeez. It's not a good time to be like a president. It seems like he had pretty good odds of dying as a president.
Yeah. And Zachary Taylor also dies of health reasons.
Yeah,
but
so
his is
Polk's
related to like I think milk and cherries because he just ate a bunch of milk and cherries.
All right. So Polk's legacy then is, besides actually like kind of giving a shit about policy.
Right. So we now have Oregon, California, and New Mexico, and all those states incredibly important.
Hey, I like 2 of those 3 states. So do with that information what you will. I will say this: I'm from California, so try to figure that out about me.
Freaking Oregon. But California alone is one of the biggest economies in the world.
Yeah, it's also like one of the most important trade hubs to the United States.
One of the biggest trade hubs. It's one of the most. It's the center of so many industries. One of the biggest population centers of the country.
Like when California has threatened to secede, that's actually a problem for America. It's not like when Texas does it. It's like, oh, Texas, you got all that few miles of the Gulf of Mexico and nothing.
Right.
Sure don't want to lose you. But if California were to leave, it's like, okay, that could be a problem.
Right. Like these are incredibly important acquisitions. And obviously we've talked about this earlier. The means of acquiring new land for America is usually not great.
Usually involves a lot of dead people.
Usually involves a lot of relocation, but
which then leads to dead people.
Yeah. But a lot of like it's impossible to deny how important like these states are to our country, and how and really just the model that he chose to pursue as president of like having goals and then getting them done. I really wish more presidents looked at him as an example of how to be a president, because at the end of the day, I truly believe being the president should be about the betterment of our society. It's like clearly when someone like Donald Trump runs for president, he does not have the people's best interests in mind. He has his business interests in mind.
That's why, like, my one friend said, like, maybe we should extend presidency to 5 years, but we don't allow for them to run for a second term. And I can't help but maybe kind of agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, like, re-election is a weird thing, because if a president is popular enough and people are content with their presidency, they should be allowed to continue. But the prospect of being reelected scares a lot of presidents in their first term because they're afraid that like anything that they do will hurt their chances.
I mean,
unless you're Donald Trump and you just don't give any shits.
I mean, I think Obama's a great example. Like,
Right.
if you want to talk about that, because I mean,
Ob-
Obamacare essentially got cut down to Romney care after he went through the gauntlet of re-election and whatnot.
Yeah, like I feel like Obama was able to get so much more done in his second term, and but like Obama's first term is very much defined by the Great Recession.
Yeah, which was a nightmare term to inherit.
Right, yeah. See, Obama is an example. Like we talked about Van Buren earlier, who became president during the financial panic of 1837, and obviously that didn't go very well for him. And he definitely wasn't the last president that inherited a recession. But Obama is an example of how to do it right. You know?
Yeah, and like, given what this year is going to be, like, I don't expect, like, the first half of Obama's presidency, like, to do like a quick bit of modern history, was undoing what his predecessors kind of had done, and that's kind of what we should all get ready for this next coming presidency. Is Joe Biden's presidency? It's not going to be spent on making great changes. It's going to be spent undoing a lot of the crap that his predecessor had done. And it might feel like great change, but it's really just going to be kind of restoring some normalcy.
Right. It's taking like 10 steps forward after taking 15 steps back.
I think 15 is generous. It's like after
15 is generous. Like
50 maybe.
I think on the topic of forgotten presidents and bringing that into our current history, I feel like Joe Biden's might end up in that camp.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious where it's how history's gonna be. It's gonna be, wow, this is really cool. They elected like the first black president ever. Wow, he sounds really progressive. And then it's like, who's this guy? So we did the exact opposite. We voted a white supremacist. Well, not we, the other half of the country did. And then who came after him? The really cool black guys, vice president, who nobody was excited about.
Yeah, good old Sleepy Joe.
And this will be how Grandpa McLean tells stories to his kids when he's like in between having PTSD from fighting in the Third American Civil War.
Yeah, but like I think, like, Mr. Biden has a lot of work
problems.
He's got his work cut out for him for sure.
You know, it's the best comparison I think John Oliver made was, it's like oatmeal raisin cookies. One cookie has a lot of raisins, but the other cookie is just raisins.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry if I took us off on tangent, Polk.
No, it's fine because I wanted to bring it back anyway. Because at the essence, I always like to think about, all right, this stuff happened, but like, how does this stuff affect us now in the modern times? And a lot of, even more modern presidents have been forgotten. Like, can you tell me anything about like Gerald Ford?
Yeah, I mean, Gerald Ford could be an episode because, like, I don't know much about Gerald Ford, but I know he's like one of the few like presidents who he kind of just got known as a screw up. I think, right? Like he would just kind of bumble.
History does not remember Ford very well, but like the general public doesn't really know much about him at all. Like I think that there's a lot of merit to being president, and to be forgotten isn't always a bad thing, because I'd rather not be remembered very well than being someone like all of the people that I talked to today were all president around the time of Andrew Jackson, and we don't really remember them because they're way overshadowed by Jackson's villainy.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm gonna like. We'll remember Obama because not only did he get the luxury of having a second term, but he also like helped a lot with the Great Recession and Obamacare, and then gay marriage, and and being the first black president is a huge step forward. But like Biden's the most like milquetoast president.
Yeah, I think
can ask for.
kind of the takeaway lesson from this period could be you either have presidents who are just forgotten because they kind of were just working on undoing how incredibly screwed up everything was, so like it didn't seem like there was much progress, or they were forgotten because there was one significant jerk who was just a jerk and everybody else and they all mimicked him but didn't do like. That's the thing I've been noticing, like from Republicans who are staying loyal to Trump at this point. A lot of them are just like setting themselves up. Like there will always be another Trump. There will always be another Andrew Jackson. There will always be another Andrew Johnson. Like this is just a regularity we will have throughout history. When you think you got rid of the bad guy, there will be another one to take his place.
Yeah, it's like, and you also have a couple of these guys that are forgotten of no fault of their own, because a lot of the people around them had such a hindering effect on their presidency, like John Quincy Adams, who was unable to get a lot of the things that he wanted to get done because of Congress. Or
and John Quincy Adams, I think if you ask me who he was, I'm like, I think I vaguely know his names, but not really. And I know a lot of people confuse John Quincy Adams with John Adams.
Yeah. The Quincy is important. I mean, like, of course, like if you live in Massachusetts, like Quincy Adams is a very important person to you because of how much relevance he has in that area. And like, of course, he's him and his dad. They're all important figures in that area, but to like most Americans, like, yeah, we know about John Adams because he's the second president. He comes right after Washington, and he's obviously a very important figure leading up to that. But then like you get to his son, and like the era of the founding fathers is over at this point, and this time period is so far overlooked that most people that I've talked to can't really tell you a single thing about him, other than like, yeah, he's a son of John Adams. Isn't that cool? But I think,
well, that's like James Buchanan. The only thing I know about him is he's from Pennsylvania.
James Buchanan is considered by historians to be the worst president ever.
Awesome.
if not the worst, he's bottom ranking 5.
That makes sense given that he's from Pennsylvania. Like, well, cool. Like, we have a president from here. Maybe we could be proud of this.
And that also makes
sense.
Evilly. It also makes sense given that he's the president right before the Civil War.
Right. Yeah.
He's like, number 15. But I think Buchanan's a pretty interesting figure. He might feature in part 2 of Forgotten Presidents if we do this again.
This is a series you could really run buck wild with.
Yeah.
I think just what I learned from this is like kind of how like weird it can be to hear about like what we kind of assume modern politics as. Because like somebody like George Bush Sr., I don't know if I would know a lot about him if it wasn't for a fact he was so recent.
Right. It's also
and like to even more extent, Bill Clinton, like, do you think he will be remembered? Like, I'm trying to say, like 50 years from now when people are talking about presidents, like, do you think people will talk about somebody like Bill Clinton? Or
he'll be remembered because he was impeached. That's it.
Good point.
Same thing with Andrew Johnson. Most people only talk about Andrew Johnson because he was impeached, and because impeachment is such a relevant topic nowadays, especially. you're obviously going to look back like, oh yeah, these are the other two. I also just want to take this time to mention, like, as as if we haven't shit on Donald Trump enough, he now holds 50% of all American president impeachments by himself.
Wait, so he holds. Wait, what about Nixon? So
Nixon was never impeached. He resigned.
right, I forget about. I always because they were going to, but he kind of said, "And I'm out of here."
Yeah, so Nixon was never impeached. He resigned before that.
Jeez,
So
yeah,
the only impeachments before Donald Trump were Andrew Johnson and Bill Clinton. And then
And
Trump gets impeached twice in
for
one
two
term.
very different reasons. Andrew Johnson almost destroyed the country after the Civil War for a second time.
And then Bill Clinton got a blowjob.
Yeah. And like you want to talk about people victimized for no reason in history, Monica Lewinsky could be a whole episode.
Oh yeah, for sure. But especially like at least in our age group, I don't know what it's going to be like for people going forward, but there's a lot of history to cram into one course. So for me at least, like none of my US history classes really made it that far. So like we usually hit around like Vietnam and then the school year ends.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's weird because the most recent history is erased from our memories. Maybe because they don't want us to know
How
about.
bad? Yeah, I feel like when you're like, I know we're gonna probably talk about Vietnam, and like, there's not a lot to be proud of in our recent history. And I think that's kind of the thing that really sucks, because I think you said it right. Whenever we seems we make 10 steps forwards, it feels like we fall 50 backwards.
Right.
Like, you can currently listen to a phone call where Ronald Reagan compares black people to animals. And it's that, like,
Yeah,
that is a phone call.
He's talking to Richard Nixon and calls
Yeah.
him, he
like,
he calls a black person a monkey.
and keep in mind, there was also a large contingent of like American fascists who supported Richard Nixon, but then stopped because they thought he was too soft on the Jews. Which I feel like if Richard Nixon heard that, would probably be like, "What? Who's saying that?" That was my shitty Richard Nixon.
I mean, Nixon at least is he's a fuck up for sure.
Yeah, but is he a fuck up or a bastard? Like, I feel like there needs to be a distinction for
I think
that.
he's
Like,
a fuck up.
yeah, because like we've had like Ronald Reagan, bastard.
100%.
Like I'd say any modern problem with the divide between conservatives and Democrats in the United States of America is because of Ronald Reagan.
Reaganism is probably like the biggest disease.
And like
Our country.
Reagan, like, you know, like I know English people blame Thatcher for a lot of their like current political divide,
Which absolutely justified in a lot of cases.
and like I feel like that's like when you think about Thatcher and Reagan, it really is same person, just different gender, different country.
Right.
Just this awful conservative who tried to undo any progress that was made prior to them.
Yeah. Like there's a lot of fuck ups.
That brings me to our question for this week, because I think we're done talking about the history there, are we?
Yeah, I'm good.
Now, Tyler, this is a bit of a weird question. Which president would be the best Uber driver, and which one would be the Uber driver out of hell?
Uber driver. I feel like Jimmy Carter is probably my ideal Uber driver.
I should say dead or alive, so.
Dead or alive? Yeah. No, honestly, like I would love to be in an Uber with Jimmy Carter. He just seems like a really nice guy to have a conversation with.
I'd say that. I also think like Teddy Roosevelt would be another fun one.
I don't know if Teddy Roosevelt would like me.
Oh yeah. Again, differences between you.
I think. See, the thing is, like, we would get along on a lot of things, but Roosevelt and I have very, very varying views on other issues.
Like the fact that he's racist and
He's not only is he a racist, he's like a super imperialist.
yeah.
And
I just imagine that's like gotta be the insane one. I think worst. I feel like I should exclude our current president for that because that's the obvious choice.
Mhm.
Because also nobody can prove to me our current president knows how to drive.
Shit.
Like
Yeah,
you
he
could
probably doesn't. Why would he?
like I don't think in his life he's ever driven a car.
Mm.
Like
I
I've
wa-
seen. Have you ever seen a picture of him besides the time he was behind the wheel of a semi truck driving a car?
No, I haven't. But like
I've seen video of Joe Biden driving a car, but I've
when
never
when
seen
you're
that.
when you're that rich, why would you ever need to drive?
Yeah. I think FDR would be another interesting one, but that's because he's my kind of Uber driver where he just should not say anything the entire time. You would be silent. Everybody would get out and keep to themselves.
He's also paralyzed.
You could get, they make cars for people with disabilities. You could get past that.
Yeah.
I think worst, like now that I say it, Andrew Jackson. Kind of because you'd get halfway through and like you wouldn't tip him enough, so he'd shoot you with a flintlock pistol.
Pain.
Yeah.
Um,
He challenged you to a duel.
who would I not? I think. I mean, maybe George H.W. Bush would vomit on me like he did the Japanese prime minister. So I'd suck.
While he's driving too.
No, I think I might have to agree with you on Andrew Jackson. He would, or I think he's the most like unapologetic asshole.
Yeah.
Like
You know, at least that's, you gotta give him that. He stuck to his guns.
literally.
Yeah.
Donald Trump like pretends he gives a shit, but he doesn't, obviously. And honestly, like Donald Trump is an evil motherfucker, but he's also like unhinged enough that you can have like a funny conversation with him.
I'm Googling right now. Does Donald Trump know how to drive a car?
I don't know.
Oh, apparently he has a sports car, but there's not answering my question. How
He can
does he
have
know
a
how to
car.
drive? He has a car. Oh my god, but like I could never like I could probably think of like even seeing Obama, but I just couldn't imagine him because here's the thing about Donald Trump. He's the first time we've had stupid presidents. George H.W. Bush.
George W. Bush.
George W. Bush. I forget H. I meant to say W. George dumbest president. Gerald Ford, Richard Nixon. We've had evil presidents. Ronald Reagan, Andrew Johnson, Andrew Jackson, and stupid presidents also kind of George Washington.
I mean,
Trump is the first time I could think outright that we've had one that was like just maniacally evil and also cartoonishly stupid.
he's the perfect like super villain for like a TV show or something.
And not like a adult TV show, like a kids TV show where
Right.
it's like goofy slapsticky humor. He's like a SpongeBob villain.
Yeah, he's the fact that he's real is insane.
Like
But
me and you are film students, and I know I've talked to you this, but like if you tried to write anything that was going on right now, you would be laughed at, and like you would be laughed to. Like nobody
dude,
would think that's a realistic or even like something that could plausibly happen ever.
right? Like I after the raid on the Capitol, I saw one screenwriter tweet like, you know how hard it is for screenwriters to like come up with a feasible method to like storm the Capitol, and then people just fucking walked in. Like if you wrote about like the Capitol riots before they happen and you just had people just like walking into the Capitol, like everyone would be like, there's no way they don't have like security enough to like stop these people or whatever.
Yeah, that's we're gonna have to do an episode on that soon because I'm trying to decide if it's because history is part of our name, but I think if we live through history, I guess we can do an episode on it. I'm
Right.
waiting for more news to come out. Like
I want to
the
do
difference between being a news podcast and a history podcast. A news podcast is you tell the facts as they appear to you. A history podcast, you have to tell them as they were and be fairly certain about it. So
yeah. Is it-
right,
and there's also like the fact that we weren't alive for any of this,
yeah.
so we
All
can't
right.
tell you very well. But yeah,
Well, folks, that's the end of our podcast. Stay safe, stay healthy, keep wearing a mask, drink some water, get a vaccine if you can.
please.
Please do it. Please, God.